Alright, our little piece here needs to have a bit of a radius taken out here, and we'll go ahead and put it underneath there, grind away so we get a nice shine on the whole radius, and you can see that reflection, and we're set to go. Okay, so I've cut a small strip, and now we're going to create an arc with this strip, and we'll go ahead and do that with a mandrel. Just draw it over the top of it, and then we'll get a reasonable arc, but we're going to get a little bit of flex back here because the metal is fairly hard. So probably the better thing to do would be to come into a little bit narrow area. Let's do it again a little bit narrower. There we go. So let's see how that will go. Not too bad. It doesn't exactly fit, but it comes fairly close, and all we have to do is bend things around a little bit and open it up and get it a little more accurate, and we'll get a nice fit on that. Okay, so then take a pen and mark the spot where it's going to need to be cut, and you can see that there. Take the clippers or the shears and go ahead and cut that edge. And we've got our first piece, and of course that later on is going to be welded into that area right there. We've got our piece positioned. We've got the arch in place. We've got the gold solder awaiting. Let's fire up the torch and heat this baby up. Nice warm flame. Go ahead and heat everything up. And since our clamshell is sitting in the crotch of the pliers here, I'm going to heat the pliers up a little bit too so they can get pre-warmed. And as things come up to temperature, we can drop the solder in below here, and you can see that it's going to just kind of peel around as it warms up. Come on, there it goes. We'll put a little bit of solder on this other side. Kind of a tricky little process here because it's upside down, but let's go ahead and just take it out of this now that we've got the solder in place, and we can just heat that whole thing up and let the solder run around. There it goes. Just kind of take it right on around. Yeah, there we go. Okay, we've applied some flux to the second one, and we've applied it to both sides, and now we just lay in the little chip so it sits nicely, and it doesn't look like it wants to sit nicely. Possibly we've got it turned around. In fact, yes, we do. There, and I think that's going to sit just fine. A little bit towards the point there. Ouch, that's hot. There we go. Alright, we're ready to fire that one. Okay, a little bit of heat on this one. Get the solder in place. Get everything ready to go. And again, we're going to put the solder a little bit right there and a little bit right there, and that's going to hold this whole thing in place so that we can turn it upside down and run the solder the whole length of the line. we should be able to get this in pretty easily. We got one little chip there, if you can see it. Up. There we go. Now watch it just start to take once everything comes up to temperature. There we go. Make sure everything else is happy. Bring this down just a little bit. There. That looks good. Same thing over on this side. That should do it. Now let's go ahead and do this once again. Looks like we've got just a little bit of a gap right there. Can you see that? Let's bring it in a little closer. Just a little bit of a gap. Yeah, you can see the gap now. So I'm going to have to take that down, and probably what I'll do is just heat it up a little bit. We're back up and running again. We've got the pieces out of the acid. They're all welded in place. We'll go ahead and lay them in, and I'm looking more at this blue topaz than I am at the amethyst these days. I've had a couple days to look at it. Slide the topaz in there, and it's really looking nice. I mean, of course, it's all scungy looking, but also to drop something like, not exactly that crystal, but something like that down below the topaz. Something that's kind of hanging and dangling. I think we've got a really good start here. Okay, we're going to file our facing edges here to get them both to match up. And I filed one already. And the way that we find out if they're matching up or not is to lay them on the table. And look down the edge of these two pieces and see that those two flat planes are pretty level with each other. They look pretty good. And back over to the radius grinder. We're going to just kiss that inner edge there on the grinder. Let's just square it up real nice. And you can see it's starting to square up. Using an inside ring mandrel, I'm going to go in and polish the inside edge of the design here, in order to, because later on, once it's welded in, I'm not going to be able to polish this. So best to get it kind of out of the way. I mean, later on I'll have to go back in and fiddle with it a little bit, but better to have it totally polished. We're all set up. We're going to weld one side at a time. If you'll notice, I've just welded just this very tip right up in there. Because if I'm wrong, if things aren't aligned properly, I can take it apart fairly easily. And if I welded the whole thing, the taking it apart process would be a much more difficult process. And this is going to be a fairly difficult process to align these two pieces up and get them squared up just right and get them to fit everything just right. We've welded just that upper edge right there, so I can take and move these things around a little bit and get them to square up. And I've already moved them around, and you can see here that they're pretty squared up. It looks like we've got a fairly even set of, what are they, claws? Right in those bottom edges there, you can see the couple little chips of solder. Now, I'm not going to weld the whole thing. I'm just going to weld this little corner here and this little corner here, because up above the corners are welded, and what I want to do is lock in the bottom section before I go ahead and weld the whole the whole seam. And that way everything stays in place and nothing moves. Okay, that bottom edge is welded. Now I think it's time to just drop it in the acid and let it sit for a few hours, just to make sure that all the other weld contacts are nice and clean and ready to go.